Morning to everybody, and welcome to another day in your life. Well, we wake up every day, and we live every day, and we reinvent ourselves every day. So, a lot of how your life flows into depends on the choices that you make, because the choices govern how realities will move and how you step out. So today you've made a choice and you've come here to address something, to heal, which means you're opening yourself up to a possibility of a shift. You made a different choice, because otherwise every day our routine is wake up, go to work, and then we expect something dramatic will change. But if you keep doing the same thing every day, the end result is not going to change. So that's the first rule of transformation. You have to change something in your output. Only then will the input shift. So you made that choice. You're here. Now let's see, how is this going to impact you? How many of you here have no exposure to constellation work? Like never done it? All right. Welcome, sir. So you're my prince for the day. And thank you for coming. So very quickly, just to put this into a perspective, everybody familiar with the word healing? In a way, what does it mean to you? Anybody? Your thoughts on it, if you heard it before. And remember, there are no right or wrong answers, okay? So, what would this mean to you? Shift, raising ourselves, sir? Whatever it means to you.
Get injured and then it gets better.
Yeah, something gets better. Yeah, okay.
More awareness.
More awareness. So many different explanations for healing. You know, it's one of those multifaceted words, like the human mind. Like, what does it mean for you? Oh, long list. So whenever you have a multifaceted word, one of the easiest ways to understand the intention of the word is to go back to the language from where it was created. So the origin of this comes from the Greek language, and the original word is hail. And what that word means, literally in the Greek language, is to become wholesome and complete once again, to restore vitality once again. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that once upon a time, maybe in a galaxy far, far away, we were wholesome and we were complete. And after that, something happened. Jazz happened. Drama happened. And we started to lose parts of ourselves. And as we started to lose parts of ourselves, our restlessness grew. And from here begins this quest to find these parts back. That's what we are trying to do. Now, strangely, even animals heal. So if you take a wild animal, for example, in a forest, animals get injured. They get injured in a battle. They get injured in natural calamities. Have you noticed how an animal responds when it is hurt? I'm not talking domestic animals, okay? They are already corrupted by humans. But if we talk wild animals, they will follow two protocols. Number one, they will lick their wound. And after that, number two, they will withdraw into a safe space, what we call as hibernate. That's it. There is no veterinary, there's no antibiotic, there is no plaster, there is no band-aid, and they get okay. Which tells us that the power to heal is inherently present in life. Life heals. Like even for us, technically, if you have a broken bone and you go to a doctor, he'll put a cast and then tell you rest for 15 days. What is that rest doing? It's allowing your inner natural healing capability to fuse that bone back, which is how cuts heal. When you put a band-aid, the band-aid is only giving a safe space to it. It's not actually encouraging the formation of the granuloma tissue. That's a very spontaneous process. All right. So everything heals, which means everything fixes itself, provided we allow it to happen. And this is where humans differ. Because allowing things to happen for humans is a byproduct of their free will. And this is where we have a quantum shift when it comes to life. Now, let me give you a simple example. So let's say we're talking about a guy who's maybe in his late 40s, early 50s, and he works in a corporate, has done very well for himself, great family, all boxes are ticked, life is good. Doctors will often tell you that, after you turn maybe 50, it's a good idea to get an annual health checkup done because the system is aging. It's a plane that needs servicing, so once a year, just basic parameters. So in one of his reports, the biochemistry shows that his C-reactive protein marker is very high, which is normally a sign of cancer. He has no pain, but it's in the blood. Now, naturally, the system goes into overdrive. Family gets hyper. The medical system gets hyper. They will start to draw complicated plans for therapy, chemotherapy, radiation, blah, blah, blah. Now, cancer, these days, of course, is a little more humane, but if you got this like 20, 30 years back, it was a very dreaded disease. And it was dreaded because the treatment for cancer was as harsh as the cancer itself. You needed to decide what is going to be your exit route. And the reason was not far to figure out because the chemotherapy that you took was literally poison. And that couldn't distinguish between healthy cells and cancer cells, which is why you had so many side effects with chemotherapy and you needed to boost your immunity with white blood cells every time you took a dose of chemotherapy. So basically, your quantity of life might increase, but quality got severely compromised. Now, this is a very pragmatic guy, as I said, lived life well. He sat down with his family and spoke to them and said, see, no matter what I do, I'm not going to leave this planet alive. That's a given. I have no pain. So instead of doing all this jazz, I will retire. I'll cash out the stock options. We have a couple of $1 million, which is good enough to live really well. Let's have fun. Let's spend quality time with each other. If I get pain, we'll see what to do. Now, will such a person even come for a program like this? Answer is no. Why not? Because he's chill. He's fine. Which now, and this is of course not a judgment on our response. Okay, I'm in this profession. So I am as much with all of you as the story. But essentially for humans, more than the body, it's our behavior to what is that determines our healing. If we are fine with what is, we're good. Then we will not rush for therapy, we will not come into constellation work, etc., etc., etc. Which then tells us that for us, healing is very psychological. It's very much our mental acceptance of processes. Because life is way bigger than what we think it is. There are many things in life playing in the background. So obviously in this context, we come to psychology because psychology is all about behavior. We come to the work of Freud. And then this wise man 200 years back hypothesized that our behavior is not just a function of our cognition. It's often influenced by many, many things that we are not conscious about. And that's how his whole model of the mind, the conscious, subconscious, id, ego, superego, etc. And so obviously, if our behavior is what determines our peace of mind, then the fact remains that our behavior is profoundly influenced by our family, specifically by our parents. because we are born a clean slate, and the way our parents behave with each other becomes our unconscious framework. So, what did my father teach me about women if I'm a boy? And if I'm a girl, what did my mother teach me about men? From where my basic yardstick starts. And that's why you see, in many cases, if the parents don't have a great marriage, it's very difficult for the children to have a great marriage. Because the benchmark that they're emulating is X. And if X is unhealthy, but X is known, and that's exactly where they will land up mostly going. Not saying this is a thumbs, rule, but that is the observational stat. Also, when a mother and father don't get along with each other, the first and the heaviest price is paid for by the child. So if the first child is a boy, the mother will project onto the boy everything she never got from her husband. She'll fashion him, maybe not in an intimate way, but in every other way, she will fashion him to become the man of her life. And that's how you have mama's boys. And mama's boys have a tough time getting good marriages. And daddy's girls is no better. Because then dad is God, he's at a pedestal, nobody can be dad. And any man who has to match up to dad is almost a failure even before the race begins. It's almost like dad has a handicap that's like one lifetime ahead. So very, very difficult. And these things happen, and it's not evil, but it's just observational. It happens. So by the time Freud was getting done with his innings, it became increasingly clear that families and family systems had a profound influence on behavior. And this is from where, at the start of the 20th century, family systems as a therapeutic modality came into play. So much so that in the 1940s, 50s, two psychologists, Murray and Linz, were studying the behavior of schizophrenics. Like we know, a couple of years back was a very dreaded generalized anxiety disorder. If you got admitted in asylum, it was a one-way ticket to hell. It was like Hotel California, you never came out, almost. And if you did manage to come out, what these people observed was that very often when a schizophrenic got discharged, in 2 or 3 months after going home, the problems came back, the symptoms came back. And that started to get them thinking, where is the real problem? Is the real problem with the individual, or is it actually with the system? And this person is only reflecting the pain. Now, in all this context, we have this modality, constellation work, discovered by a German psychologist named Bert Hellinger, passed away a couple of years back. And like everybody, he too was fascinated by human behavior. Also came to the conclusion that behavior is hugely influenced by the family. But he went one step ahead, saying, so if I'm so aware that family is impacting behavior, why am I selecting this pathetic ragtag family where I know that I'm going to get into a disaster story? Now, what we have to understand here is that for centuries, religions and faiths across the world have been divided into two categories. On the one hand, we have the religions and the faiths of the East, which include Taoism, Buddhism, Shinto, Hinduism, where there is a very strong belief in the culture of reincarnation, which made it very easy to rationalize why you would select a particular family, because you had things to close there. The whole cycle of karma, destiny, and all those things. But in the West, the two commonest faiths, which is Christianity and Islam, do not subscribe to reincarnation. Now, this is a German. So he doesn't have the recourse of past lives to rationalize. But he's thinking, is the creator like a roulette croupier in a casino, who's sitting with Like say it's now Chandrasekhar's turn to be born. So Chandrasekhar is waiting in queue for an allotment to a body. And actually Chandrasekhar wants to experience a lot of wealth. He wants to be born to Elon Musk or Bill Gates or one of these families. So here is his soul. It's like that ball, roulette ball. And he's put all his bets on the Gates Foundation family. But when the ball rolls, grrr, and then boom, it goes into the Duri family. And then before he knows it, he's in Hyderabad with a different ball game. So is it so random, or is there some method in the madness? And that's when this guy, genius, discovered that in both these cultures, in Islam as well as in Christianity, there is a very popular belief that we come from the stars and we go back to the stars. And that's the line he held on to, which now brings us to the term constellation. So constellation by itself is a term that comes from astronomy, and it represents a family of stars. So if you look at the world, the cosmos, zillions of stars, but they are grouped in structures, which is what you call a constellation, an arrangement. Now, funnily, everything in the world is moving. Earth is rotating, Earth is revolving. The entire solar system is moving in the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy is moving in the firmament. However, the individual position of stars in a constellation never changes. The entire constellation may move through a sun sign. Like, for example, you can have the Orion constellation now moving through Libra. But Orion, which basically has 3 stars in one straight line, they're called the 3 sisters, that never changes. So according to Hellinger, his hypothesis, he doesn't have proof of this, he hypothesized that families on Earth beamed out from star systems. And if on Earth, the original order of the star system was honored, the family would be in peace, the family would be in harmony, the family would be fine, which means our behavior would be fine. But of course, on Earth, that rarely happens. And it doesn't happen for reasons that I explained. Where, out of loyalty, you plug in gaps, child plays the father, daughter plays the mother, all this jazz happens. And then obviously there are issues in the system. So how do we fix it? And this is again his observational genius. He calls this whole protocol a phenomena. It's an observation. He doesn't know why it works. So how this modality works and why it is so powerful in a way. So obviously everybody here gets one chance to come here. You describe a problem. We know nothing about your life. Absolutely. But after you describe the problem, I will simply say, okay, Ritu, what's your family like? So there's a dad, there's a mom, there's a brother, there's a sister. Okay. Pick any 4 people randomly to play your brother, mother, sister, and yourself. And then they hear, there's no script, there's no director, there are no dialogues that are given in advance. And there is some unconscious director who says, action. And then people here start to move based on thoughts and emotions that they can't explain. And very often they recreate a vital scene, which is from Ritu's growing up years, which explains to her how and why she came to whatever problem she's come to. So for example, let's say her core issue is insecurity, and she can't figure out why she's insecure. And then she watches that in the dynamic between the father and the mother when she was a kid, every time the father came home, the mother would be petrified that he's either had an accident or something is wrong. Like she had this anxiety, which the daughter observed and blindly soaked in without any logic to it. And now that's playing out. So it's actually the mother's belief playing out through her. The difference now is that Ritu's the adult. She's outside the system. And then we can, of course, intervene, which is what we do. We do a surgery here, and the funny part is when we do the surgery here, the surgery reflects back in real life, which is the strange phenomena that we cannot explain. But it happens. Like, just to show you how brutal this can be, and this is one example I give in every constellation. This goes back to when I was a student studying this in 2011. And we were constellating a girl's family. Her mom was 2,000 kilometers away. And when the constellation was going on, the girl's mother, whoever was playing the girl's mother, said, "I'm feeling very dizzy," and fell on the floor. In reality, the girl's mother had hypoglycemia and she would get these dizzying spells. So obviously the girl panicked. We stopped the constellation. She called the mother. Mother wasn't answering the phone. And then she called the maid saying, "Where's my mom?" And the maid said, "Mom is in the bedroom. Can you check?" Sure enough, the mother is unconscious on the floor. So how does this psychic teleportation happen? I don't know. And I don't think Freud knew either, or Hellinger knew either. But it happens. So that's how the system becomes non-invasive but brutally accurate, and which is why you can't fudge it, because you're outside the system. You can't corrupt the movement. Okay. For those of you who might be interested in understanding this deeper, there's a serial on Netflix. It's called Another Self. It's a Turkish serial. They're now into season 3, where they show you how this operates across generations. Okay. And how, like, the traditional family constellation shows you that patterns repeat in families. What we do here is slightly different, and I'll explain the how and why of it. So Earth is a transactional planet, and for a transaction on Earth, you need an identity. We all have an identity. In our identity, we mostly carry our name, but beyond that, we will all introduce ourselves differently. Okay? So if I ask Pooja to introduce herself, she'll probably say, "Okay, my name is Pooja Arora." She might, now depending on what's unconsciously valuable for her, will come her pecking order of identity. So she might say, "I'm the mother of 2 children" first, or she might say, "I'm the founder of ReDefine Wellness," or she might say, "I'm a corporate MBA background, but who's found new purpose in healing and therapy." So it all depends on what's important to her. And this will go for each one of you. You will all have an identity. Now, this identity is profoundly influenced by a setup that's bigger than you, and you can't reverse influence it. Like your name, my name, who gave us our name? Our parents. Now, in some cultures, the name is given based again on a constellation, arrangement of stars, for cultures that believe in astrology. So in my case, in my family, we are from India, and the astrological chart is often checked before you name a child. In my culture, my name means crown prince because my stars are like that. So my parents, in their infinite wisdom, called me Yuvraj. But in their crazy wisdom, had they called me Tommy, which is a dog's name, then, well, Tommy would be doing a constellation, and see how it would feel. Welcome to a constellation by Tommy. It'd probably be the most hilarious constellation that you ever do in your life. Just for the record, I've also had a dog in a constellation before. But next level, that was. So, again, you can't reverse influence this. So let's say you become a psychologist and you now figure out that your dad hasn't been good to your mom. So after you getting your degree, doctorate in psychology, and one day you sit with your dad and tell him, "Dad, don't you think you should be a little more polite to her?" You know what he'll tell you? "Don't forget where you came from. I gave you birth." So you can't reverse influence this setup. So in this setup above you, you have mom, dad, ancestors, lineage, culture, faith, education, religion, society, law and order. They're all bigger than you. And they will not take your consent. They'll superimpose their system on you. And then based on that, you will form an identity. Now, your identity is about your beliefs, your values. So, let's say, for example, you're girl number 3 in a family of 4 daughters where the parents were desperate to have a boy. Now, imagine what kind of identity you will get. So, when your mom is pregnant for the first time, there's a lot of excitement, boy, 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 boy. But the first girl arrives, and it's a kind of slight deflation, small puncture tire. So you fill in the air again, the process starts again. Now, second daughter, you literally lose interest in the car. And by the time you are born, child number 3, you're almost an accidental defective condom product, where your parents are saying, when did we do this? Scratch the head. So you land up absolutely uninvited in a system that doesn't want to own you. Now what happens? You'll get the hand-down clothes of the 2 sisters. Thanks God you don't get the leftover cake of the birthday. But typically you will be down the line. They'll put you in the same school where your sisters went, which is a curse. Because then your sister's English teacher is now your class teacher. So when she looks at you and says, oh, you're that one sister, look at her, and she's a gold medalist. And you literally want the ground to open up and disappear, So you grow up with this tag of being nobody. I have a very crazy example of a girl. She's now in Bali. Born in India, in Delhi in 1972-73. For many, many years, Indians typically would live in collective systems, joint families, where nuclear family was a very Western concept, where the boy stepped out for education and made his own family. But typically, if you go to the East, the clutter is to stay together. So this is 17 people in a house. They're rich, they're big house, like 5, 6 bedrooms, everything is great, but they stay together. Now in the 90s, television came in India in 1974. So prior to that, the entertainment typically was movies or songs, like radio. So she's 5 years old in Delhi. She's gone for a movie with everybody, 17 of them. And when they're coming out, she's holding the hand of a cousin brother and she stops to see a poster because she's fascinated by the picture. The brother forgets that he's holding the hand. He's 7. Everybody goes home, leaving her in the theater. Nobody notices she's missing. And only when her mother has to put her kids to sleep, she notices she's not there. And it's almost an hour. Now, if this child concluded that I'm insignificant, it wouldn't be a wrong conclusion. But if you ask the mother will fight tooth and nail and say, no, bullshit. Of course she's vital to me. But things happen. Shit happens. And sometimes it's not intended, but it happens. So here is this 5-year-old kid starting with a voice in the head that keeps telling you, I'm insignificant. Very difficult to live with that. So this is where, once again, Freud's genius comes into play. Defense mechanisms come in. Coping mechanisms come in. And what would be the strategy of this girl to deal with this coping mechanism? The strategy would be, I don't like people. They don't understand me. Or be super clingy, not let you ignore her. So either completely out, flight, or completely in, fight. Now, if I don't like people, which basically means I like my space, it's the worst defense mechanism to have. Because if you liked your space, you should be an animal. You'd have all the space in the world. You became human to understand cooperation. But if I like my space is your new mantra, what's it going to do to your behavior? You obviously will not be on social media. You won't be on Facebook, no Instagram. You will be a part of the conspiracy theory that says the government is trying to track everything that you are doing, and through social media. So if that's going to be your behavior, no email ID, no Instagram, no Facebook, what kind of environment will you generate? People will forget you. Nobody cares. And what would you just have done? Prove to yourself once again that I'm a nobody. So this is how you are stuck in a fulfilling prophecy. You make your own life. So when we do a constellation, there are two types of constellations we can do. We can constellate the lower half of the constellation, which is a structural constellation, which is more direct. And today, for example, the theme of our constellations is the zone of abundance. So it's a structural constellation where you work with beliefs, strategies, and attitudes. You can also do a family constellation. If the constellation demands we set it up directly, all structure originates from family, but a family is more oblique, it's not so sharp. A structural constellation is invariably sharper, but what we decide to set up will depend on the story. Now that this is clear, every person who comes here gets multiple opportunities to heal. Number one, when you come here, you have a story, we heal it. Number two, if you're sitting there and you get picked to play a role in other people's constellations, you sometimes find that if you have an issue with your dad, you'll get picked by 2-3 people to play dad. And that puts you into the other person's shoes, which by itself is extremely informative. And sometimes number three, you are not in the chair, you're not in the matrix, you're sitting outside. You're watching a story. But when the story plays out, you tear up. So every story, 3 opportunities, multiple possibilities. Okay? So good luck to everybody, and let's have a profitable day and a good day. I would suggest we should stop this.